Welcome to the Startup Sessions, the #1 web show and podcast for trusting your gut, breaking the rules, and starting something meaningful, featuring in-depth interviews with acclaimed creative entrepreneurs that have succeeded at building their own remarkable businesses. My guest today really doesn't need an introduction since her reputation speaks for itself. Tara Gentile is with me on the show, talking about what she refers to as the U economy. She'll explain why now is the perfect time to leverage your skills, talents, and interests to build a thriving business that represents your unique value and how you want to serve the world. If you're looking to start a business or make a bigger impact with the business you have, then Tara's game-changing insight may just be the boost you need. It's all coming to you right now on episode 40 of the Startup Sessions. Welcome to the Startup Sessions show. Today, I have an exciting guest for us, and I've been eagerly awaiting for this conversation with one of the top business strategy experts, period. I would like to welcome Tara Gentile to the show.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction, and thanks for having me.
Yes. So Tara is a customer-obsessed business strategist who works with her global clientele to make a bigger impact on their businesses and doing it with less heartache. Amen for that. She's the creator of Kickstart Labs, which is a micro business community and resource library where over 200 members support each other in navigating what Tara calls the new economy. And I think we'll get into some discussion about that today. She's also the founder of Co-Commercial, which is a co-working and education space for independent workers and thinkers in lovely Astoria, Oregon. Tara is a speaker, an author, writer, consultant, and Tara, what I get from you is that you truly have this passion and desire for working with coaches, designers, doctors, makers, writers, and others who want to turn their work into a healthy, sustainable, and thriving business.
Yes, absolutely.
So, oh my goodness, we've got so much that we could talk about today, and we've got a limited amount of time, so I think we'll just dive right into it.
Okay.
First off, though, I got to ask, I'm curious about these kind of things. You live in an amazing little beach town in Oregon, Astoria, and my wife and I live in Portland. We love to go there, I'd say once every 3 months or so because we just love it. And what made you choose Astoria as the HQ for Tara Gentile?
Yeah, so I moved to Astoria about almost 2 years ago now, and the original plan was to move to Portland because it's such a hotbed of the kind of innovative spirit that is flowing beneath so many of the micro businesses that I work with, and that community that's there in Portland. But kind of on the way, literally, to deciding that I was going to move to Portland from the East Coast, from Pennsylvania, where I'm originally from, I made a quick pit stop in Astoria and just fell in love with the town. And on top of that, it was really attractive to me because it was quiet, it was smaller, it was a little less overwhelming, it was also cheaper. And I was writing a book proposal at the time. So I was really in the midst of streamlining my business and kind of pulling back on some of the revenue generating activities that I had been doing previously. And, just making a cross-country move in the first place can be expensive. And so I wanted to focus, I wanted to streamline, and I wanted to just kind of have this quiet, creative environment to nurture the work that I was doing at the time. And so my plan was to move to Astoria for 6 months, bang out this book proposal, and then make the much shorter move into the city when that 6-month lease was up. And as I kind of grew into the community and as I learned more about it and the kind of people that were here and met my boyfriend, it just became a much more permanent spot and just felt more and more and more like home. And I think that I'm very lucky although I hate using that word, but I'm very lucky to be able to call someplace like this home. I don't need a place with big employers. I don't need someplace that is super duper connected. All I need is some internet and the small resources that a town like this can provide. And that's what makes me tick on an everyday basis. So I get to have a lifestyle that I really want to have. I get to have a community that I can plug into and really create a lot of value for. And I get to have, just the working relationship with my own work that I really want to have. So Astoria has just been a great place for that.
Okay. Great. I love it. I love that, part of what I hope we can talk about a little bit about the you economy, something that you refer to a lot is, that we can choose our place and really make a business in the place that feels most supportive and conducive to our business. So that's pretty cool. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So Tara, speaking of the you economy, you talk about this a lot. And how people are creating opportunities instead of finding jobs. Describe what you mean about the you economy, and maybe give some examples of why now is such a good time for people to be building businesses around their skills and their talents and some of their desires.
Yeah, absolutely. So the U economy is all about realizing the power that individuals have in today's economy. With the way that the internet has evolved, the World Wide Web has evolved in terms of social media and content creation, we have more opportunities to be influential, to build networks, and to create value than we have ever had in the history of the known world. That's just extremely exciting. It used to be that if you weren't a well-connected capitalist in the most literal form, like you have capital and can apply it, you weren't able really to start a very sustainable business. You were always going to be tethered to whatever you were doing, whether that was a job or maybe like a mom and pop shop. And now the most valuable capital in our economy has essentially shifted a bit. And so sure, land and money and human resources are still valuable things. But the other thing that's extremely valuable now is influence, is opinion, is creative ideas. And that's something that any individual can have. And it's also something that you can cultivate. So it's something you can kind of invest in for yourself so that you can grow your wealth, grow your capital in terms of influence and creative ideas. And you can take those things and leverage that into a way to create value for whatever community you're a part of, whether that's a niche community online or whether that's your physical community that you live in, or whether it's maybe a more expansive community that bridges the gaps between online community and offline community. You can take that and match it up with what Nilofer Merchant calls your onlyness, which are really the unique set of skills, strengths, and passions that each individual has. You can leverage those things to create, like I said, create value for the people that you're coming in contact with on a daily basis. And not only today do we have this great opportunity in terms of leveraging and building wealth from influence and connectedness, but we also have more tools than we've ever had before as well. So, whether those are e-commerce solutions or whether they're content creation solutions, our ability to create something and offer it for sale has there's almost no friction there. If you have an idea today, I would like to say tomorrow because it sounds better, but that's not even realistic. I mean, the most realistic thing is if you have an idea today, by tonight, you could be selling it. And I think, it's just, again, there's been no other time like this in human history, and this really is a time to seize the opportunities in front of you, to create your own opportunities and stop looking to the rest of the world for for someone else to select you, essentially.
Yeah. Yes. I love it so much. And this is now kind of clicking too. When I introduced you about having a global clientele, I mean, truly, you've been able to reach clients from all over the world, I would imagine, and work with them no matter where they are, because with technology, there's really no bounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to someone in Hawaii last week. I talked to someone in Australia the week before that. I had a client that I just spoke to who's on, I believe she's on her way to Antarctica right now. So yeah, there are people all over the place. And it's kind of funny, again, like connecting with the business community here in Astoria, explaining to them that, yeah, there are people all over the world who know about Astoria now because they work with my business. And it's such an opportunity not only for me, but it's an opportunity for this great place that I live too, and all of their businesses, and how we can work together to create those connections that are going to help all of our businesses grow and help our community grow at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's truly fascinating. Now, one of the other sides, though, to all of these tools and resources, I know when I got started about a year ago in being really a solopreneur, like I had so many options and so many choices, and I quickly got overwhelmed and confused. And I fortunately had someone say, no, you should probably focus, and your closest way to close the gap and create revenue for your business. And they gave me their advice around that. So that was an issue that I faced immediately, was like, wow, this is a huge playground. There's so many tools to use. And so I kind of got trapped in that time of exploring for maybe longer than I should have, but eventually pulled things around and got focused. What do you tell people that may be new or newer that are in that phase of like looking at all of these bright and shiny new objects and what to choose and how should I do business and which path should I take? What's your general piece of advice on that?
Yeah, so one of my greatest joys as a coach or a strategist is taking things off of people's plate, saying, no, you don't have to do that, or why are you getting all caught up in these things? Because it's such a common problem, right? And we all only have so many hours in the day, and even for people that have bigger teams, your team only has so many hours in the day too. And so you need to focus. So the main strategy that I use with clients in terms of focus and in terms of taking things off of their plate and really getting them to prioritize their to-do list, their team priorities, and their tools and applications is asking them to think about what their chief initiative is. And so when I define a chief initiative, it's the singular goal that is going to motivate you the most over the next 6 to 12 months. I think entrepreneurs by their very nature are very goal-oriented people. I'm a very goal-oriented person, but I think that we can actually be goal-oriented to a fault, and we tend to set so many different goals that then we have a hard time focusing, prioritizing, and making decisions. So the idea behind the chief initiative is that you choose that one thing that is most motivating to you, that's going to cause you to be able to organize the whole rest of your life and business to achieve that one thing. The beautiful part about that is that when you set that one big, hairy, scary, juicy goal, then all these other goals line up behind it. And you can actually see what kind of goals you need to set, what kind of metrics you need to be paying attention to, what kind of team members or tools you need to bring on board, what kind of systems you need to put in place, all to achieve that one goal. So just as an example of how that works, back 2 years ago when I moved to Astoria and I was finishing up that book proposal, finishing that book proposal and being able to shop that book proposal was my chief initiative at that point. But there were all sorts of things that also needed to happen. Two of the big ones were, as I mentioned, streamlining my business model. So, I had to quit offering this, that, or the other thing all the time and just really focus on what the core offers for my business were going to be that would generate the revenue I needed to run the business, live my life, and produce the book. So that was one thing. The other thing was being able to say when we shopped the proposal that I had at least 5,000 email addresses on my list. And at that time, I was below that milestone because whatever reason, the prevailing wisdom was that if you didn't have 5,000 email addresses, you couldn't get the big publishing houses to look at you. Again, that was two years ago. I have no idea what the number is now, or if that's changed. But so those were two goals that I needed to accomplish, but I wasn't motivated by those goals. I was motivated by the much, much bigger goal of getting the book proposal done. So having that chief initiative in place then really streamlined everything else that I was doing. It focused everything else I was doing, and I could set real priorities so that I wasn't being caught by shiny object syndrome, that I wasn't getting stuck in analysis paralysis. I knew what I wanted to accomplish, and I knew what I needed to do to accomplish that. So that's the main strategy I use with clients to get them to focus down, shed the dead weight in their businesses, and really work toward the things that are going to get them where they want to go without driving them crazy.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice, because I was in that land of driving myself crazy because I had just too many competing initiatives going, and I did need someone to tell me to focus. But I love this idea of the chief initiative. It's fantastic, and it's something that I think gets maybe passed over too frequently by people, especially newer entrepreneurs and business builders. And it's so important. I mean, I can say this, I can tell it's important to you. It is one of the most important things that I've done in my first year of business, was setting a chief primary initiative and following through on that. And then all of these other lovely things fall in beautifully to support that. Yeah. And I can't explain exactly how that works other than it did. And it's probably one of the reasons that I've had some early success with what I've been doing. So I highly recommend it. And of course, I know that you've got so many good resources. I hadn't been to your website in a while, and I'll put your website, TaraGentile.com, on the show notes for this episode. But there's so many good resources there. So I encourage everybody to go check out Tara's website. All right, Tara, you state, I love this. I just found this on your website this morning. You stated that the desire for purpose and meaning in work isn't the burden of a naive generation. It's the foundation for a new age of commerce. And I love that. I love that because there's so much out there about, following your passion is like, it's kind of a load of crap. What you really need to do is focus on your skills. And then there's the other camp that's like, no, if you don't follow what you really love, then it's going to be like working a corporate job or whatever, but harder because you're trying to do it all yourself. So there's all this confusion around this, I guess, theory of meaning and money and kind of putting it all together. And yet it's one of the primary reasons that I started my business. Like, I wanted to provide value for people around things that mattered to me. And I wanted to create, and I create in various ways. This show is one of those ways that I get to create. But I also want to be paid well. That's important to me. And should be important to anybody that's creating a business. So this may be a little bit of a loaded question, but how can we close that gap between doing meaningful work and getting paid what we really want for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a really important question. I think the key to that is knowing how the work that is most meaningful to you is also meaningful to other people. And I think that is the step that is most often skipped over. Is we want to create the art we want to create, we want to write the book we want to write, we want to do this that we want to do, or that we want to do, and we forget that people won't just buy something because we love it. They have to buy it because they love it, because it matters to them, because it's meaningful to them, that it solves a problem, it fulfills a desire, it eases a frustration. And we don't spend enough time figuring out how what I love or what you love translates to what someone else, to what matters to someone else. So one of the phrases I've been most fond of lately, that my clients are probably sick and tired of hearing from me, is make your message matter. I think so often you go to a website, you read a sales page, you watch commercials on TV, and you think, why would that matter to me? That does not matter to me. How could that possibly matter to anyone? Things that are filled with jargon, things that are all about keeping up with the Joneses, things that are all about consumption over something much more meaningful. Those are the things that are going to continue to drop off in terms of sales for the foreseeable future. We want less and less and less of that kind of stuff, and more of the kind of stuff that speaks to us as individuals. Another thing that I've been saying a lot lately is personalization, not generalization. And when we focus on only what we want, I think our only recourse is then to generalize about what other people could want, because we just desperately want to fit it in, right? But if instead you break your audience down, you break your network down, you break your friends and family down, and you think about the individual people that you're creating for, or the people that you're creating even better with, then you can really create something that's meaningful to somebody else, that matters to somebody else. And when something is meaningful and matters to someone else, they're willing to pay for it. That's the other thing that we have to see happening in today's economy, is that people are paying a premium for things that are more meaningful, that connect them to more people, that matter more to them on a fundamental level. And that doesn't have to just mean like personal development tools. It could mean jewelry, it could mean clothing, it could mean homewares as well. Different segments of the market find different things meaningful. So you need to connect the market segment that you're talking to with why your product should matter to them, and then ask for a price that reflects the value that you're providing and the meaning that you're creating in someone else's life. When you do that, people are willing to pay the price that you ask. You feel better about the price that you're asking, and you're creating a much more abundant source of revenue for your business.
Okay, fantastic. And that feeds into another issue that's it's been big for me recently, and I think it's big for a lot of new business builders too, and is that whole conversation around charging what you're worth, or pricing things in a way that's going to allow you to thrive financially based on the value that you're giving. And I recently had a conversation with a business strategist that told me that I could resolve most of my immediate earning issues by doubling my rate. But it wasn't a conversation just about that. It was a conversation about the actual like hard numbers in terms of value that I was providing through my consulting and coaching services, and the fact that I was getting exponentially better at delivering that value. And would people be willing to pay that doubled rate? And we came to the conclusion that yes, that would be a good fit. But immediately, like, I had these moments of, gosh, would people really pay double the rate? And is this going to exclude people that otherwise couldn't afford it? And I had all these mixed messages going on around that too. But I know you're a big proponent of charging more, of earning more, and feeling really good about it. And that's such a sticky point for a lot of especially new business builders. But what would you say, and I think you just touched on it a little bit, but what would you say, for someone who's maybe struggling a little bit financially, they're making money, they're getting paid for what they're offering to the world, and they're hearing this term, charge what you're worth. What would you say that they should consider in terms of charging the value that you provide, and maybe a little bit of strategy on how to approach that?
Yeah, so the fundamental answer to this question is stop trying to charge what you're worth. It's a problematic idea for so many different reasons. If you have a question about what you're worth, that's a therapy issue, not a strategy issue, right? And I highly recommend talking to your therapist about that, or your life coach, but don't talk to me about it. So instead, you really need to think about what your work is worth. And your work is always quantifiable on some level. And so I love what you just brought up in terms of an example in your own business, is that your work is worth more because people are reaping certain results from it. And those results have a monetary value to the people that you're working with. We have it easy in business coaching, strategy, development, any kind of business services, because we can put a nice little price tag. I can say you invest in this particular product development lesson with me, and it's going to reap you $100,000 in the next year, probably. That's easy, and I admit that I have a very easy time with that. It's harder for other people, but there are all different ways to quantify what you are creating. So let me give you some examples. If you're a weight loss coach, and you can save people doctor bills in how much weight they lose with you, or how much more you can kind of optimize their health, there's a financial value. Say you're an assistant to busy moms. Well, how much is the busy mom's time worth? Just quantifying in terms of time convenience, money, those fundamental things that we've always based value propositions on, that's how we figure out what our work is worth. And it applies across every single field, every single industry, every single market. Sometimes those equations are a little more sticky than others. Sometimes they're a little easier, sometimes they're a little harder, but the fundamentals behind them are always the same. You figure out what someone's time is worth, you figure out what this convenience is worth to somebody, you experiment, and you come up with a number based on that. You don't come up with a number based on your personal worth. You also need to kind of pull your business model into play with this. So you need to figure out what are all the different things that you're offering, what you need to charge for each of them, how much of each you're going to sell to make the number at the bottom come out the way that you want it to come out. And so it's this kind of back and forth play that has to happen between what you need, what you want, what you know your work is worth, and what the market's willing to pay for it. And sometimes we take pieces of that and we move them around so that you can get the best, the most optimized equation going on there with your business model. But bottom line, it's about figuring out the tangible value of what you offer and how that relates to the customers who are most likely to buy. And a lot of times, the good news is, it's way more money than you think it's going to be. And of course, there's other times where there's bad news, but there's other ways around that. There's always another way around. And so it really pays, literally, to figure out what that value is and how that relates to what you need to be charging in your business.
Yeah, this is one thing I love about you, Tara, is you provide the strategy behind what I think a lot of business owners should really be thinking more deeply about. Because if I can go into a conversation with a potential client with the conviction, knowing based on evidence, tangible evidence, that I can provide X value to them, then I'm going to be in a much better position emotionally and otherwise to know my value and sell, knowing that I'll be able to help that person with whatever it is they're struggling with. So I love this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you end up creating a better customer experience as well. If you can walk into a sales conversation and tell a story about a client that you've worked with in the past or a customer that you've helped in the past, you're going to create a better experience for the prospect that you're talking to because they don't have to guess. They don't have to negotiate. They can really feel and understand in their bones what it is that you're offering and what kind of results that you can create for them. And so it makes the decision much easier for them. It makes the investment much easier for them. And that's always going to create a better experience, which is going to put your whole time of working with them started off on a better foot.
Yeah. No, thanks for mentioning that. Stories are powerful and they're real. And whether it's, talking about how great it is to live in Astoria, or my clients had this, this was their example of how they succeeded using my services. Those are powerful, real things that that usually people can relate to in a very strong, emotional and real way. So thank you for bringing that up. Got it. So one other thing that you talk about in some of your work is playing bigger and playing really big, going for it with your business in this new economy. Being an advocate of that, of playing big and really going for it, there's a lot of questions I think around, well, at what time do I do that? Or should I go for it right away? Or should I just ease into my business until I feel more comfortable and then really go for it when I know it's going to work? That's another conversation that's interesting, to say the least, with my clients and probably some of your clients and people in general that are business builders. What are your thoughts on going big, going all in, really deciding that you're going to knock it out of the park with your business?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, knocking it out of the park with your business doesn't look the same for every person. So I think you need to be constantly almost having the conversation with yourself of what does success look like for you. And I think being open to the idea that your definition of success, real success, can change over time. So whether it's a monetary goal, whether it's a lifestyle goal, whether it's an impact goal, you need to understand what it is that you're driving for at any given time. Then in terms of how do you decide when to go for it or how to go for it, I think you need to ask yourself whether you have fallen into some sort of paradigm that you see represented, and this happens all the time in the online space, or whether you're really creating something that's going to build a legacy for you, that's going to create the best experience for your customers, and it's going to create the biggest impact you can in the world as you define it. There are so many, it seems, well, not even so many. There are very distinct paradigms of what a successful online business looks like in the ether. And I think the biggest mistake we make is trying to fit ourselves into one of those paradigms instead of building something that actually represents us and the success that we want to create. And so, you know, in terms of ambition, in terms of trying to play a bigger game, you know, if it doesn't feel right to you yet, it's probably because you're operating in someone else's paradigm. And if you kind of figure out what it is that you want to build, you'll inspire yourself. You'll motivate yourself to play that bigger game, and it will feel right. And I think, of course, there's a period in every business where you're a little unsure of yourself, you're a little unsure of what you're building, but I think that each and every one of us need to create an intention around figuring out what our unique paradigm is going to be, figure out what our unique model is going to be, figure out how people are going to relate to us in the world. And the closer and closer and closer you get to that, you will naturally start playing that bigger and bigger game. And then I think, just as kind of an aside to that, I think the other key here is having some sort of mentor, whether that's an active mentor in your life, so someone that you're actually talking to on a regular basis, or whether it's someone that you kind of use as a mentor. I have both in my world. I have people that push me personally, and then I have people that I look to and as someone who is pushing me from the sidelines, people who don't necessarily know they're my secret mentor. And I kind of use those relationships and what I see them doing to push me to dig deeper into myself, to dig deeper into what I want to create and figure out what that's going to look like in the way I want it to look, not the way anyone else wants it to look. So I think that's kind of, those are the two things that you really need to be thinking about in terms of how you're going to play bigger, how you're going to be really create the success that you want, and also how you're going to not create the barriers to your own success, because that's another thing that happens a lot for micro business owners, is that they end up creating barriers to their own success based on fear, based on discomfort, based on just really not looking ahead enough. And so I think that those are the ways that we kind of combat that particular problem.
Yeah, I agree. Now that we're having this conversation, I mean, one of the best things for me is also having a mentor and someone that can, challenge me to step forward and, even have some accountability, honestly, because I'll do things for someone else that I trust and respect. If I said I was going to do something on Wednesday and I don't have it done on Tuesday night, I'll stay up to the wee hours of Wednesday morning getting it done because I said I was going to do it and I committed to that for someone else. So I am a huge believer in having mentorship and accountability with people that you trust and respect. So thank you. Thanks for bringing that up too. All right. Let's see. Time's going by so fast, as I knew it would. How about we dive into the lightning round of questions here,
Sure.
Tara? You ready for that? All right, cool.
Absolutely.
What's the most influential book for you right now?
Most influential book for me right now is definitely still, it has been for the last 2 years, 11 Rules for Creating Value in the Social Era by Nilofer Merchant.
Great. All right. What's the best conference or industry event that you go to and why?
I would say it's been World Domination Summit because I'm just surrounded by all of my very best friends and people and clients and people who maybe will be clients someday. But then Chris Guillebeau, who organizes World Domination Summit, just put on one specifically for business owners this year called Pioneer Nation. And I think for me, that was just an even bigger step up into finding people that I really relate to, people who inspire me, people who challenge me. And I love his events, and he does such a great job putting them on and bringing the right people in.
Yes, I will back that 100%. I went to both of those events this year, and they were phenomenal and took away incredible material and to-dos and relationships from both of those events. So I can back that 100%. All right. Most effective strategy for growing your business?
Yeah, I am going to go with an oldie but goodie on this one and say simple, meaningful email marketing. Email marketing is just the easiest way to grow a business. It's the easiest way to relate to your customers. It's the easiest way to put something out for sale. You don't necessarily need a website. You definitely don't need a Facebook page. You definitely don't need a Twitter page. But gosh, if you don't have email, I don't know what you're doing.
Love it. Love it. All right. Favorite business tool or resource?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to mention one of mine because it really is my favorite business tool.
Perfect.
And it's called the Perspective Map, and it's something I've been using for years and years in terms of building my marketing messaging, my sales messaging, and product development.
Great. And I'll put a link on the show notes for episode 40 so people can go find that on your site.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, this one's near and dear to me because I just love to learn a little bit more of what's going on for people and what makes them tick. So what's one of the most recent exciting adventures that you've had, Tara?
Well, I mentioned that one of the things that kept me in Astoria was my partner who works at a brewery, and he introduced me to beer about a year and a half ago now, not even.
Okay.
I'd always wanted to be a beer drinker, but I always thought it was really, really gross. And it turned out I was just always really trying bad beer. So beer is my new hobby. It's not a good hobby for the waistline, but that's what we love to do the most. And so it's kind of both hobby and adventure because, you know, we're really looking forward this fall when his work settles down to, you know, taking day trips and taking weekend trips. And, you know, we live in such a great area for beer too. So we can travel all around and take great adventures, you know, checking out new breweries and finding new and delicious things to try.
Fantastic. I love it. All right. So Tara, one of the things that I saw on your website that's coming up that I wanted to be sure and mention for people is you've got a new Creative Live class coming out on August 21st through the 23rd that's going to focus on how to market, launch, and sell your next big thing. And with your knowledge and wisdom and strategy around that, I think for anyone who's even remotely interested or curious that they need to check that out. Is there anything else that you want to say about that specifically?
Only that I don't hold back. So it's 3 full days of me teaching you everything I know about a particular topic. And the other fun thing about Creative Live is it's so interactive. So it's not just me teaching at you, but it's actually the opportunity to kind of plug into a 3-day long community or longer sometimes. And get your questions answered, talk to people who are struggling with the same problems that you're struggling with. And I really think it's worth blocking the time out on your calendar to show up and learn and be a part of that event or anything else that's on Creative Live. I love them so much.
Great. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Outside of that event, what's next for you? What are you most excited about in your business right now?
Oh, what's next for me? Well, we're doing our biggest launch ever of my business coaching strategy system called 10,000 Feet. And so we'll be welcoming 40 new participants into that this fall. If you want more information on that, it's 10,000feetstrategy.com. And that just is all about taking a bird's eye view of your business so you can do more with less resources, less heartache, less time or energy, and really optimizing your business so that you can create both the life and the business that you really want to have. And so I'm super duper stoked about that.
Fantastic. Good. Great stuff. Oh my goodness. You've given so much in such a short amount of time, which is your style. You truly don't hold back.
I don't understand the meaning of that.
And I love that about you, Tara. I love it. So TaraGentile.com to connect with Tara. And again, I'll have all the links for our discussion today on the show notes for episode 40 on the startupsessions.com. But go check her out to learn more about, all your incredible offerings, how to work with you, your public speaking engagements. You're tremendously busy and offering so much great value out into the world for business builders like myself and others that listen and view this show. So I just want to thank you so much for taking some time to be here and share your incredible value and wisdom and insight with us today, Tara.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I had a blast.
Okay. Take care, and we'll see everyone next week on a brand new episode of the Startup Sessions. Bye-bye. Well, if strategy, insight, and cutting-edge business wisdom was what you were looking for, then you were not disappointed. I love Tara's take on the you economy and why there really is no better time to be leveraging your ownliness to create a life and a business you desire. And anytime someone wants to help me take things off my plate, I'm all ears. So I love Tara's strategy for developing a chief initiative and using it to have better focus and achieve greater results. And then my favorite takeaway had to be stop trying to charge what you're worth and charge what your work is worth. I hope you enjoyed this highly actionable and valuable discussion with Tara Gentile. I know I did. Thanks for listening, and be sure to carve out some time this week to develop your chief initiative for the next 6 months. And if you want to be accountable to someone, go ahead and share your chief initiative with me. You can email it to me at michael@thestartupsessions.com, and I'll reply back to you with my chief initiative. Have a great week and live big. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to head on over to thestartupsessions.com for a full recap of all our episodes, including links to amazing resources for each guest, thoughtful and provoking blog articles, and many other great resources. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And if today's guest can create a meaningful business and achieve a life of freedom through a business with soul, why can't you?